What do we do when the line between innovation and accountability blurs? With innovation's promise comes a shadow of uncertainty. The unintended consequences of our creations emerge, challenging the fabric of society. Technology, especially AI, has the unique capacity to transcend geographical, cultural, and societal boundaries. This universality, while a testament to human ingenuity, also means that its consequences can proliferate widely and unpredictably. What starts as a solution in one context can morph into a challenge in another. AI has the power to transform our world for the better. Should we stifle progress with the threat of legal action? Without accountability, can we trust leaders to prioritize ethics over advancement? These are the questions we're exploring today as part of the great debate. Our Master of Ceremonies, Hailey Wilson, is the Fairy Godmother of AI. Joining her in the arena are Ashley Gross, a tech-savvy marketing maestro, Niten Luthra, an AI innovator and explorer, Lina Trivedi, a creative and trailblazing visionary, and Kettle, an engagement guru and strategist. Now let's get to it. Hailey, are you ready, boo? Good luck, debaters.
It's on like Donkey Kong. Welcome to the great debate. Thank you, Hailey I, for a phenomenal intro to today's topic. I'm Hailey Wilson. We've got a phenomenal group of debaters today. Before we dive into this, a couple of notes. I see we have a lot of great attendees. Thank you guys so much for being here today. Before I launch into this is very important. I want to make sure all of the attendees hear me and anyone who might watch this later on. The folks on this great debate today are fulfilling personas. This is theater, people, okay? While their preparation is serious, and the intent of today is serious, to dive into a topic that is absolutely worthy of our attention and our conversation, they are doing this as personas, theatricals. So just because Kettle and Lina are the devil's advocates does not mean that they are anti-AI. Okay, they are not anti-AI. That does also not mean that Ashley and Niten are all about let's just throw AI at the world without any sort of breaks or any sort of things that we're worried about. So I just wanted to make sure that I got that clear. These are personas, not real representation of how they feel. Okay, without any further ado, Patty, I'm going to open it up to you, sister, for the opening statement. Remember, I will raise my hand virtually when you have 30 seconds left in your time. You have exactly 3 minutes to do your opening statement.
I would like to start with a quote from one of the greatest artists of the 20th century, someone who has done a lot in terms of transgender and gay awareness and making sure that we are more tolerant. And that person is David Bowie. And David Bowie was also a brilliant pioneer of the internet. In fact, he had davidbowie.net way back in the day. And the quote I'd like to open with says, "I don't think we've ever seen the tip of the iceberg," meaning in terms of the internet. I think the potential of what the internet is going to do to society, both good and bad, is unimaginable. Our team is here to focus on stopping the unimaginable. AI needs strict controls, generative AI in particular, strict controls, strict regulation, and there needs to be legal liability for the tools that are unleashed or launched onto the public. I think that the European Commission AI Act framework offers an excellent framework in terms of doing this. It's a risk assessment framework that goes from minimal risk on up to DEFCON, whatever number, unacceptable risk. I think that we need to protect children. We need to protect people who maybe are not as savvy about technology as many others are. I think it's up to the governments to protect this. In tandem with that, I think data privacy is a key issue. And copyright infringement is a key issue, and victims having recourse in case some of their works are stolen or something harmful or dangerous or malicious happens to them as a result of generative AI. So our stance is that until there is appropriate legislation, regulation, frameworks, accurate legal constraints that can be enforced, we need to stop. We need to stop. We just need to stop. So that is our stance. We need to stop until the right controls are in place to protect children and protect all of us from, as David Bowie says it, the unimaginable.
Brilliant. And to clarify, when you say we need to stop, you mean what specifically? Stop sending AI out into the market? Are we turning Chat GPT off? What are we doing?
All of the above. Yes. For now.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Just wanted to be clear. Just want to be clear. Thank you, Patty. That was great. And you were within time. Okay. Now we're going to head on over to Ashley to speak for the Eternal Optimist. Same deal. You have 3 minutes. I will raise my hand when you have 30 seconds left. Go for it.
Thanks, Hailey. So we're here today to debate whether or not AI creators should be held legally liable for their technology. That's the question we're debating. And the urge to rein in generative AI with strict regulations is understandable, but it's ultimately misguided. We've seen this play out before in other industries, stifling innovation in the name of safety. We value freedom and progress, especially here in the United States. Overly restrictive measures would be a disservice to that very spirit. Generative AI is a nascent technology. Its potential for good in healthcare, education, scientific research, it's vast, right? Just like with any powerful tool, there's a risk of misuse. However, imposing harsh regulations based on limited understanding could cripple this technology before it reaches its full potential. Imagine trying to write a code for self-driving cars before they ever hit the road. The technology is simply too unpredictable. Similarly, AI outputs can be surprising, defying rigid rules. Placing the sole burden of addressing unforeseen issues on individual creators is not only unfair, but it's also potentially more negligent. A fragmented landscape of self-made rules by each AI developer is a recipe for chaos. There would be no universal standards, making it difficult to hold anyone truly accountable. Instead, let's prioritize a user-centric approach. Empowering users is key. Platforms can implement clear and transparent policies outlining acceptable uses and consequences for violations. Educational initiatives can equip users to identify potential biases and navigate this technology responsibly. This fosters a sense of shared responsibility. We can learn and adapt together, fostering innovation while mitigating risks. So let's choose to prioritize user education and collaboration over stifling regulations. This paves the future for a way where both creators and the users can shape the ethical landscape of generative AI for everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ashley. That was wonderful and also within time. You guys clearly have prepped. I love this. All right, over to you, Lina. You got a chance to do another opening for the Devil's Advocates.
Thank you. I want to just start off by talking about how technology has not been held accountable over the decades of the progress that we have made. We have not been holding technology companies liable for the effects of their technology. And this has been putting our society into a state of chaos already. So that's where we're starting at. When we look at other industries, for example, alcohol, a minor cannot walk into a bar and order a drink without having the bar suffer consequences to serving that minor. If that minor were to leave and drive and cause an accident and cause people to die in an accident, then there is some responsibility that will fall back on the bar, some even criminal responsibilities. We don't have any of that in the technology space. We are already free to develop however we want, and it simply should not be that way. When we look at medicine, if I wanted to perform a surgery maybe on my partner or on my child, I can't do so because I'm not licensed to do that. There are rules and regulations that govern the types of things that I'm able to do, and we need to apply that into technology. When we look at social media and the effects of social media that it's had on our community, especially on our youth, we can see there's depression, there's anxiety, there's eating disorders, all kinds of things that are only now being explored in the legal system, where there's cases where entire states, departments of human services, just in the last 30 days, the entire state of New York filed suit against 5 of the largest social media networks for the mental health crisis that our youth is experiencing, and other states are following suit. We do not have to be behind the 8 ball when it comes to AI. Look at situations already with social media and the consequences that we see in the news as well as outside of the news. I spent some time with a family that has been victimized through Grindr, a site that is targeting young boys, that all they have to do is just say, yes, I'm 18. And what's happening is that a lot of these children are being just subject to human trafficking rings. Police officers and prosecutors are saying that the majority of their cases that relate to people that are under the age of 18 are coming from Grindr and Snapchat. At what point are we going to say, hey, we do not want our children to be human trafficked. Let's put some guidelines on some of the technologies that are out there so that we're not subjecting our children to harm.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lina. Appreciate that. All right, go ahead, Niten. I guess you can do your opening statement if you want.
So the question of whether AI tech companies should be held liable, legally liable, is a complex one with no simple answer. It requires careful consideration of the potential benefits and risks, as well as ongoing dialogue between policymakers, developers, and the public. As AI continues to evolve, so too will the legal and ethical considerations surrounding its development and deployment. We need to define the rules and standards before we can truly solve for accountability. Let's be very clear about this. We all ultimately have a voice, but it is the lawmakers who must write the rules. Congress and the federal government are the owners of that. And that's why we need to encourage them to think about what the rules are for accountability. So a couple of questions that are going to have to be answered are, what specific types of harm caused by AI would trigger legal liability for tech companies? And how would legal accountability be actually enforced in practice? It's a great concept, but practical application is absolutely key. I strongly believe that the creators of technology should currently not be held accountable for AI. In general terms, there are 3 reasons why I feel this way. One is there are challenges in attributing blame. So due to the complex nature of AI systems, it can be difficult to pinpoint where the fault lies for a negative outcome. Was it the developer, the data provider, or the user who misused the system? Stifling innovation. Imposing strict liability could discourage companies from developing and deploying beneficial AI technologies for fear of potential lawsuits. America is still the greatest superpower in the world and the strongest country for innovation. So if for us to be able to maintain that position, I think we have to be very careful on how much regulation we put at what point in time. We need new legal frameworks because I think the current ones are not equipped to be able to handle the complexities and the challenges posed by AI. So new regulations and standards are definitely needed. Let's take a look at the EV industry. I know we've talked about that a little bit, but when we look at advances in EV transportation, we would never, ever have been able to bring this climate-saving technology off the ground if regulation was set from the get-go. Standards and policy develop over time. So Tesla was founded in 2003. The first car debuted in 2008. The first litigation actually was in 2009. And the NHTSA issued its proposed standards for EVs in 2013, with the final published rule in 2022, some 19 years after the company was formed. So this stuff takes time. As of 2023, there are approximately 1,200 incidents recorded across a massive spectrum in terms of AI. The law surrounding AI is still very unclear, and there's a limited number of cases to date, and the judges have often steered clear of making AI-specific decisions, instead focusing on the underlying contractual, statutory, and common law principles. As AI becomes more prominent in society, it's clear there will be need for legal guidance, but I think companies have to also push that agenda with their novel legal theories. As we all keep the dialogue going, I think we should try and stop focusing on regulating AI in terms of its underlying technology and focus more on things that we can easily regulate. The data that goes into the algorithms, the purpose for which they're used, and the results that they generate. By focusing on context and results, it's possible to create AI rules that are flexible enough to allow innovation while still providing protections consumers deserve. In the meantime, we should encourage and request responsible development of AI. Thank you.
I'm really glad we didn't skip that. That was really good. So sorry about that. Great job.
No worries.
Okay, so now we're going to go into the cross-examination piece of our event. Essentially, the way this works is that Patty, you're going to go ahead and get the opportunity to cross-examine the team. You have 2 minutes. They do not have a limit on their response, but I will. I mean, please don't take the mic, guys. Like, if you talk for 5 minutes, I'm going to stop you. And then they get the same opportunity. Sound good? Fantastic. All right, Patty, over to you. I'm going to go ahead and start timing you. 2 minutes to cross-examine the team, and then we'll give the team the same opportunity.
I agree with Ashley and Niten about the education piece. So I think that is critical. I do think, though, we don't have it right now, so we need to stop and we need to have appropriate regulations put in place. Niten, you talked about the attribution of blame. I am curious. I think with a strong legal system, that's the purpose of a strong legal system, is to have a case go through the system and the attribution of blame correctly placed. So I think we can do that. And I would like to hear why you think our legal system would be failing in that, or why we need to just not have any legal liability for AI companies and their tools. In terms of stifling innovation, I think it stifles innovation when you have, the big 7 tech companies, and they can go forward and have all the money to put products out on the market, and you're not having the little guys able to get it out there. And I do think, whether they're little or big or part of the big 7 or not, we need to protect people from the unimaginable, and we need to have those protections in place. And there should be no argument about why they're put in place, particularly when children are exposed to things that maybe they're not capable of understanding or making positive choices for. So I would like to hear from both of them in terms of how you propose our existing system control this without stopping, because I think it needs to stop. We just need to press pause. We need to stop. Elon Musk has published a paper about this. Sam Altman has published a paper about this. So I would like to hear why you think going forward, unfettered, without any legal liability, is the right way to go.
Yes, I think, Niten, if you want to touch on the legalities, I can handle the stifling innovation question.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the legal infrastructure is just not there. I mean, look at what we talked about earlier about EVs. It took, 20 odd years for the federal authorities to ultimately play catch up and issue some legislation that's going to potentially hold EV companies accountable. I think so. I think that the law has to come from Congress and the federal government. So we do need them to step up, and it's like going to a football match, right? Without a referee and without clear details of how the game should be played and what the rules are, it's going to be very difficult for companies to be held accountable. So we need clarity there. Also, generative AI is still in its nascency. Like it's not been around that long. As I mentioned earlier, there are 1,200 incidents that span a broad spectrum of extremity, some being extreme and some not. I think what we can do, though, is we can use soft laws to drive convergence. Soft laws meaning industry guidelines, codes of conduct and standards. Something Lina and I are working on as co-founders of Joy.ai is best practices. And that's not a bad start. That's a good way to go. And it also reflects the voice of the people. And, when we get to a point where Congress can do what they need to do, then I think we're in a position to really drive hardcore regulations. But, I think it starts with companies being a little bit more focused on best practice. And it's people like Lina and myself who are really trying to echo what best practices are. So that's from the legal standpoint. Ashley, over to you.
Yeah, so as far as the stifling innovation comments go, there's 2 reports that I would like to pull your attention to. And one of them was from Georgetown University, and it was a 2021 report, I believe, by the Center of Security and Emerging Technology. And it actually the number one use case takeaway was that overly broad and ambiguous regulations actually do stifle innovation, specifically in AI, by creating uncertainty for the developers and discouraging investment in research and development. So as far as fully halting generative AI and overly regulating it, there's one great example right there. The next study I would like to include in the debate is the 2022 study by the Brookings Institution, and highlights the importance of striking a balance between mitigating risks and fostering innovation. And then the study argues that excessively restrictive regulations do hinder the development of AI applications in areas, and they specifically name drop these, that are healthcare, climate change, and economic development. There's two cases right there where you can't stop it. It's like Pandora's box. Once it's open, you can't put it back in the box. So I guess along with the rebuttal and the findings, my question would be, can you name an instance where there was an emerging technology that just halted until regulations caught up to it?
I mean, I'm interested in the answer. Do you guys have an answer to that?
I
You
think
can
that's
take your time.
Was that a question for us?
part of our cross exam, because
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I can answer that. I don't think that we are necessarily pinpointing which agency would be responsible for producing these ground rules that we're saying are needed. In the very early days of the internet, when I was developing the Beanie Babies website, we had children that were posting their address and phone number openly on the internet in massive volume. And we ended up just producing rules that ended up being adopted by the Better Business Bureau as voluntary guidelines that businesses adopted as it relates to children and privacy on the internet. That later, over time, ended up evolving into rules and regulations that were adopted by the FTC and by other regulatory agencies. And yes, it did take time, but it could just start with some of the larger companies coming to the table saying that these are the rules that we're agreeing to, and these are the rules that we are suggesting that other companies voluntarily abide to. And then consumers can know that there are some ground rules that are being followed by this company, but not this company. And it helps with that whole education piece that you all have been saying is so important in this whole journey. So I don't think that we do need to halt development, but I think that the length of time that we would be halting for could be relatively quick if everybody could come to the table and come to an agreement of what is safe and what is not safe.
But can you name a time when any emerging technology was halted so that regulation could catch up to it?
Well, I have this innovative chip that I could insert in your brain if you allow me to, and I promise you that it's going to increase your productivity. I'm not allowed to do that legally. So I would say that would be one example of a technology innovation that is halted.
I'm going to push back here a little bit, because it was very specific in the opening statements that the feelings are that we should halt via regulations using generative AI. Can you name a time when that has happened successfully with another emerging technology?
I'm not allowed to insert this chip into your brain, Ashley. I mean,
that's not giving an example of a time.
I have this experimental. It's the same concept. It's the same concept.
I don't think it's the same concept, because what you're proposing is that we halt using regulations. We halt using technology, which means that every single person using generative AI would be halted by a party until regulations catch up. So I would like to know a time in history when we have been able to do that successfully.
There are so many medical procedures, just like this chip that I'm offering to insert in your brain, Ashley. I mean, it's the same concept. There are so many cosmetic procedures that are not allowed to be done in the United States, yet people will go to places like Mexico or other South American countries to get the same procedures done. They're just simply not allowed to be done until there is ample testing and such that's done with these different procedures. It's the exact same concept.
I can cite when it's been unsuccessfully done, and I think we need to learn from that. And that would be in terms of the nuclear industry and nuclear power. that is an industry that many years later, now we're shutting down nuclear power plants. We don't have the right regulations in place. It proliferated until, you know, the Hawaiian incident, the incident in Japan. So it has not been shown successfully, but it has certainly been shown throughout history when we don't put a stop to things, there are disasters that occur. There are unimaginable consequences that happen. And I would like to think we can learn from those and put regulations in place to help generative AI not become the industry that, you know, proliferated, but then we had to put a stop to it 20 years later, like the nuclear industry.
Okay, I'm gonna think this is a good opportunity. Ashley, if you would like to go ahead and ask your question of the devil's advocates, if you want to continue in this vein, you're certainly welcome to do that. But I want to keep us on task.
Thanks, Hailey. I think my question out of the few that I have would probably be, wouldn't focusing on strengthening existing laws and bolstering the ability of law enforcement to address harmful actions be more effective than making blanket assumptions about all potential content created with AI tools?
Did you want to take that, Patty?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was like, are we on 2 minutes for questions and then we answer? So I
Yeah, 2 minutes for questions, and you can take up to 5 minutes for your answer. So you're good.
Did you ask all the questions you wanted to ask, Ashley? That was my concern. I'm like, wait, that was just one question.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I have a little, if you say this, then say this going on in my head. So as you talk, I will map out the rest of my questions.
Totally fine. No, that's totally fine. I just didn't want to short anyone of time. That is honestly where
Thank you.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes.
Just about content creation. Was that what it was?
So wouldn't we want to focus on strengthening existing laws and the ability of law enforcement to address harmful actions? Wouldn't that be more effective than making blanket assumptions about the potential content created with AI tools?
I think we might want to ask Taylor Swift about that. Because there was some content created about her that did not have her permission, and I'm not sure what the legal recourse was on that particular issue. I think it can work in tandem, but I think until those laws are strengthened or the discussion has been opened on how we're going to strengthen existing laws and or put in new frameworks in place, like the European Commission AI Act framework, I think it needs to stop. Just needs to slow down, just needs to stop.
I have a comment too. I just want to thank Ashley for making our point, because police officers cannot execute. That's their job is to enforce laws, which is exactly what we're saying. We need more laws. We need more regulations so that people like police officers have an ability to enforce some sense of stability.
Just to clarify, that was a small part of my question. I wanted to put an emphasis on the argument you guys are making is there should be a blanket stop for all generative AI vendors. And I think that the ability to enhance the laws that we have now would work a lot better and be more sustainable than making a one-size-fits-all approach. But leading to my next question is, if an AI model generates a piece of text that's demonstrably harmful, how would you prove the company is directly responsible as opposed to the user who input the prompts and chose to publish the content?
That would be up to a court of law to decide. Once there are laws and regulations in place, then the courts can decide whether a company is liable or not. But right now, there are no rules, which is exactly what our issue is.
Ideally, companies should have a QA process, and I would say we might want to ask Google what their QA process was in terms of image generation a few weeks back, because there seemed to be no QA, that is quality assurance, before things get released. So I completely concur with what Lina's saying. It would be proved in the courts, but ideally, if a company has an appropriate QA process, someone will flag it before it even gets out to the public. So that's what the ask is. Laws that hold companies accountable, liable for the actions taken with their tools.
So I just want to say one thing on that. We've talked about the fact that we need, these laws, but that's exactly the point. We need laws. We can't hold companies accountable when the laws are not there. And while we can all debate and talk about the types of things that we'd like to see, until Congress and the federal government put those things together, on what basis are we going to hold companies legally accountable?
A good question.
That is a good question. I think we need to, I think we can't, I think we're absolving ourselves of responsibility if we just say, you know, Congress and everyone needs to do it. I think there is individual accountability in terms of people speaking up and requesting these laws. But I think the flip side of that is companies need to stop.
Yeah, but actually the truth is, I mean, there's so many articles on heads of companies, CEOs, IBM and others who have been asking for regulation, that there's documented evidence that these companies are saying, hey, what are the rules of the game so that we can all, you know, do our best to comply. So I think that's definitely been there. I think it's not a case of whether we should be saying that there shouldn't be anything, but what we're saying is we need maybe some soft laws. Maybe like Lina and I are very focused on best practices and, you know, things that, you know, will encourage people to have certain standards. And I think that's probably one way to go. Legal accountability is just, it's a hornet's nest. I'm not suggesting that we don't do anything about it, but we all collectively are powerless against that because we don't actually control setting up the legislation. However, if we come together and we ideate on things that we think would represent best practice, maybe that's a good starting point.
That's exactly one more question.
Oh,
sorry.
Go ahead, Ashley. Go ahead, Ashley.
My last question is, how would making generative AI companies legally responsible for their users' actions impact freedom of expression and potential over-censorship of legitimate uses of the technology?
I don't think you can overly censor the internet. In fact, I think it's not censored enough. And I think it needs to be shut down and stopped until we have those legal laws that are crystal clear, which it sounds like that is what Niten is saying is needed, in agreement with Lina's in my point. I don't think it quashes artistic expression, because what has been happening is there's a lot of copyright abuse that is a very gray area in terms of the visual arts, and watermarks are becoming the way to combat that. So watermark is a clear thing you can prove in the legal system, and that's legally liable. I think you can become more creative and innovative the more constraints you have. So I think there's a lot of call for that. But until things are protecting people from the unimaginable, it is going to need to be stopped. Lina, do you want to add on to what Ashley is asking about censorship and freedom of expression?
Yeah, I think that we all have freedom of speech here in the United States. However, there are limits to it. I can't go up to a police officer and verbally assault him and say that I'm exercising my freedom of speech without expecting there to be consequences to the words that I'm saying. So similarly, I think that once there are rules in the game, then there's going to be some guidance of how we can potentially exercise our freedoms without being harmful to other people. And I think that's the main root of what we're saying, is that we need to have rules so that there isn't harm that's being caused to vulnerable populations in our communities.
I mean, just to be clear, though, just to make one point on this, that I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't ultimately have laws and rules, but I'm saying you can't hold companies legally accountable because there is no basis on which to make them accountable today. So to be clear, in the interim, I definitely believe that maybe some best practices and things like that could be potentially agreed upon with all of the big companies. And let's just be clear on this as well. Regulation will typically favor large companies versus smaller companies that are going to be stifled in terms of innovation. And that's something I really believe. In fact, to that question, Lina, you and I are co-founders of a company that I think has tremendous potential, as I know you do as well. What type of legal accountability would you like to see us have from the get-go?
That was directed at Lina, right? In terms of joy.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my perception. I'm just clarifying.
Yeah.
I didn't get to ask my questions.
Don't worry.
Okay, well,
we're going to get to your questions. Don't worry. Go ahead.
So what's the question
Lina, what
again?
would you suggest?
So the question is that, you know, you're advocating for legal accountability. So as co-founders of Joy.ai, what exactly would you want us to be on the hook for today?
I think that if we develop technology that's harming people, then we should be held accountable for that. I think that you and I have a moral compass where we are already going to put our technology through a filter to determine what the level of harm is going to be, and applying safeguards from vulnerable populations against that harm. However, I don't trust some of our counterparts in the industry to do the same. I don't trust Elon Musk to do that. I don't trust Bill Gates to do that. I don't trust many of the tech companies that are out there to do the same. So that is why there needs to be rules to the game.
Yeah, but how can we be held legally accountable for our safeguards? Because at the end of the day, there are no laws in place, right? So,
right, that's the problem. That's exactly what the issue is.
In
Yeah.
FTC versus Facebook of 2019, the Federal Trade Commission sued Facebook for deceiving users about data privacy controls, and Facebook was found to have violated a previous order and paid a record $5 billion penalty for privacy violations. So you had mentioned earlier, Niten, there are laws on the books in terms of data. You can use existing laws, but I think what we would like to see is, yes, use existing laws, but put a stop to it until we get those further laws in place to protect children, to protect vulnerable populations.
Yeah, can I actually, sorry, Hailey, can I just respond to that very, very quickly?
Yes, but this is
Okay.
going to count as your cross-examination, and then we're going to give Lina an extra 30 seconds.
Oh man, okay, now you made me forget the point I was going to make. But basically, what I was going to say is that, you know, at the end of the day, when we really think about this, we want to inherently all do good and make sure that we have a technology that will be beneficial for society. But to just say stop and let's not do anything is both impractical and also compromises our leadership position in AI. And other countries around the world who are developing AI technologies are not going to stop. So strategically for the United States and for all of the companies here in the States, we want to make sure that we don't just stop, but we keep going, but we maybe are a bit more mindful. Stopping is definitely not the answer.
Okay, Lina, over to you, sister, in terms of if you want to respond to his comment and then also give your cross-examination. Go for it.
I can just go right into my question.
Okay.
You know, I talked a little bit about technology companies in general not being held accountable for some of the consequences of their technologies in the marketplace today. And one of the examples that I laid forth was Grindr. Grindr has a platform where men can meet men. What's happening in our culture is a lot of young boys are going on the site in a vulnerable state of mind, clicking a button that says that they're 18, ending up meeting somebody. And the majority of cases that are coming from prosecutors right now that are prosecuting on behalf of children are saying that those cases of rape are coming from Grindr and Snapchat. So my question is, in those types of situations, there are three potential pots of people that are entities that could be held responsible. One is the children, because children should not click a button that says that they're 18. Are we going to hold them accountable if they end up being put into a human trafficking ring? Are we going to hold parents responsible because their child clicked that button and now disappeared? Or are we going to hold companies like Grindr and Snapchat responsible for not having a better age verification system, such as maybe Binance? I still to this day cannot put money in my Binance account because I'm not able to pass their age verification system. But yet on Grindr, anybody could just say, yes, I'm 18. So I'm wondering, of those three pots of people, who does the other team think is responsible?
Yeah, so I'm going to jump in here before we answer that, because we're debating whether or not generative AI creators should be held legally liable. So I feel like bringing in Grindr and Snapchat and specifying these instances is kind of like comparing apples and oranges. It's very different. If you re-ask the question using a different example that is not with Snapchat or Grindr and does not result in a terrible situation like human trafficking, I'm more than happy to answer who I think should be held liable.
It's the same. I believe it's the same. I mean, we could look at the case in Belgium where a man had engaged in a conversation with a generative AI chatbot, ended up getting into a conversation about climate control, climate control, the AI had suggested that the person can sacrifice their life to impact climate control. And by sacrificing their life, they would be able to live in paradise with this AI entity. So it's the same thing. Who are we holding responsible in that situation? Would it be the man for being vulnerable? Would it be, if in that situation, if that man was a young boy, say that young boy was 15 years old, would it be the parents that are responsible for the boy saying, yes, I'm over 18, let me chat with this chatbot? Or would we hold the company responsible? It's the same concept.
I still don't feel like it's the same concept, but if there was a situation where someone was underage using generative AI and it led to a negative outcome, then I believe it would be not a one size fits all. So again, I'm not saying that it should be just the users that are responsible. Just like I'm saying, it's not just the creators that should be held responsible. I think that if this situation played out in real time, of course the creators would be held responsible, but there would also be a law that goes into effect. And that law would only go into effect because that situation happened, which is our point. Regulation evolves. You need to give these technologies time for these situations to happen because we don't know what all the regulations should be. We haven't given this time to mature yet.
So what I'm hearing is that we haven't lost enough children to human trafficking. We haven't lost
That's
enough
not at all
people
what
to
I'm saying.
suicide. That's exactly what you're saying. Once we get
That's
to a
not at all
point
what I'm
where
saying.
the issue is big enough, then we can put the rules in place. And I think what our team is trying to say, that the rules need to be initiated now.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
gonna have to say that's not what I'm saying, and it feels really icky to be talking about something like human trafficking and comparing it to generative AI tools. So I'm gonna stray away from using the example you gave again, and just stick to generative AI technology.
Okay, then we can
specifically.
stick with suicide. You know, the suicide example that happened in Belgium. If that was, I think that in that situation, it was a grown man, but that could very well happen with a child. If we were to now revisit that and say, okay, these people are losing their lives because of irresponsible manipulation from generative AI that's leading people to commit suicide, how much are we going to fine companies that can, in a court of law, it can be said that the generative AI has been the cause of this person taking their life? You know, are we going to put a number on that in the aftermath and then apply that retroactively? Or are we going to just say moving forward, as opposed to just building some ground rules now?
Can you name a time where that's happened?
We've never had AI in our world before. So no, there has not been a
Exactly.
that it's happened. And that's why we need to be cautious. I think that the eternal optimists are just really gung-ho on developing and just seeing where things go. But we could already see where things are going because we can already look at examples like social media. I guess I'm going into my closing, so I'll stop there.
Yeah, not at all though. We're saying that there should be shared responsibility. It's if a user is signing up to use a generative AI application, then they do have a responsibility to know how to use that technology responsibly. It is also up to the creators of the technology to be held responsible. But if we look at how they're held responsible, you keep dipping into social media. Let's look at the existing legal frameworks for that. Who created that? The government. It's mandated. There's laws that were created. It's not the creators themselves that are creating these laws. We're
Thank you.
operating on an honor system code. So
Yeah.
if the argument is that the creators should be held legally liable, we're leaving it up to all of those creators as individuals to create their own rules and one, agree that it's their best judgment, and two, have some kind of a uniformity, which has never been done before or exists. So it has legally and historically never been done to hold a creator solely responsible.
If social media had rules from the beginning, then we wouldn't be in the space that we're in now. So I think that, you know, that's exactly what we're saying, that there needs to be responsibility, yes, but there needs to be guidelines to that responsibility, which is exactly what we're advocating for.
and that's a good place. That's a good place to move on to our next section. Sorry, I know.
Okay.
So don't worry. So what we're going to do next is that we're going to go ahead. Each of you are going to get 2 minutes each. This is not your closing statement. This is a rebuttal for you to just finish up any last minute statements you had from any last minute things that you wanted to share. In the meantime, audience, I really encourage you guys to go ahead and submit a few questions. We're getting ready to go into the audience question component of our event. So go ahead and put that in there and your questions. And I do have a few people submitted ahead of time. So we'll get into that. But Patty, I'm going to go ahead and let you go for the first 2 minutes. And then after that, we'll go follow the same pattern. Patty, Patty, Ashley, Lina, Niten. And then after we do that, we'll do questions. Then we'll do our closing statements. Sound good?
Yeah. Just because we have not seen it occur successfully in the past, other than regulations passed retroactively. And the best example of that I can think of is the car industry and seatbelts. And I'm so old, I actually had no seatbelt. And there were a lot of accidents. And until Ralph Nader came along and decided to go fight the car companies and put legislation in place for seatbelts, the number of deaths decreased exponentially. I don't want to wait for that seatbelt moment with AI. I want it to stop now. I want us to do it differently. I want us to find the way to do it successfully. So that's my final thought, that seatbelts, they work very well now once they were implemented. So why do we want to wait with something as powerful as generative AI and its impact on the social well-being and mental well health of our society?
Brilliant. Over to you, Ashley.
Thank you. I hear you, Patty. I hear you. I guess my last thoughts on this are regulation. Again, it evolves. It has to evolve, right? Let's just look at generative AI because that's what this debate is about. ChatGPT is arguably the biggest application that is mass adopted among the world, right? It was incorporated in November of 2022. It is a 2-year-old toddler. So we are holding that toddler responsible when it hasn't even had time to learn. And guess how toddlers learn? From their environment. And it takes time. So we're trying to hold a 2-year-old technology responsible and the creators of that technology responsible without having any legal reinforcements or laws put into place, using an honor system that differs from company to company, and not looking at all about holding users on their own as users accountable. This is a multi-touch approach and a situation that needs to be treated delicately, but also open-mindedly, right? This is not social media. This is a different tool. It should be treated as so. So if we don't have anything that works historically, we need new solutions. We can't keep dipping into old solutions for other technologies that have or have not worked. We need users to be held accountable. We need creators to be held accountable. We also need legal frameworks. We need multiple things, and that's okay to say because this is a new technology with new approaches to solve for it. Thanks, Hailey.
Thank you, Ashley. All right, Lina, over to you, sister.
Yes, we need to hold the 2-year-old toddler accountable. If the 2-year-old is committing murder and spreading plagues and disease, yes, let's stop it now. Let's not wait until it puts off this entire toxicity that's going to impact our communities and wait to see what happens before we start putting together a framework of rules. And yes, let's stop that toddler for a moment until we can all agree what the ground rules are. That's exactly what our entire position is, that we need some ground rules. This 2-year-old toddler is very powerful. It's the most powerful thing that humanity has ever experienced. So yes, let's not wait. We are the only generation that knows what the world was like prior to this 2-year-old toddler coming to birth. So yes, let's figure out the rules because we know better than anybody how to guide the world so that the children of our next generation are going to understand how to navigate it from our perspective, from us that knew what the world was like before this toddler came to be. So yes, let's stop, let's pause. We don't have to pause for a long time. Let's get everybody to the table. Let's talk about the harm that we've already been witnessing, whether it be suicide, human trafficking, depression, anxiety, eating disorders, whatever the case might be. Let's explore that so that we can figure out some basic rules and then build on that. I do agree we can build on that over time, going forward in perpetuity for the rest of existence.
Awesome. Thanks, Lina. All right, over to you, Niten.
Hey, thanks a lot. So let's be clear. We're talking about generative AI. We brought a lot of different industries, and I'm going to bring one in this rebuttal as well. But the US risks falling behind in the global AI race if legal protections for certain AI tools are removed. This would stifle innovation and investment at a time when competitors like China are rapidly gaining ground. China already leads in supercomputing power and recently launched powerful AI language models. Allowing legislation like the repeal of Section 230 to pass, this would seriously damage the US position in this crucial technology and hinder its ability to be competitive on the world stage. Perhaps we should draw parallels, though, with smoking. It's not just about creator accountability. People smoke, and while Philip Morris and others have been regulated to label their products as being injurious to health, if someone decides to smoke a packet or so a day, is Philip Morris responsible for a person's death? California banned menthol cigarettes and flavored vaping products in 2022 based on concerns that flavors encouraged teens to get hooked onto nicotine. But new studies have found that basically smokers simply shrugged that and turned to online shopping for their flavored vapes. Researchers discovered that shopping queries were 194% higher than expected for cigarettes and 162% higher than expected for vape products after the law went into effect. So there's always going to be people who are going to try and circumvent laws, but we should have balanced accountability. It's not just about creators. And I think that's the point I wanted to make. We're focusing very much on the creators, but there's multiple strands of liability and risk here, and we need to look at it more holistically. And that's why we need the appropriate legal frameworks. Thank you, Hailey.
Brilliant. You guys are so good on your time. Fantastic. Okay, we did not have any questions from this audience, but I do have a list of questions, and I'm hoping that maybe this list of questions will get our current lurkers and watchers engaged enough to ask us the questions. Don't be shy. Go ahead.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
we don't do closing remarks till after the questions.
Yep. That's the plan. So, okay. So I'm not reading these in any particular order, just honestly the order in which I got them. And instead of limiting them to a specific team, I'm going to actually open this up to the whole, everyone. Okay. All right. First question. And this is from a guy named Drake on LinkedIn. Thanks, Drake. I don't know if you're on, but I appreciate it. Should AI systems be granted a form of electronic personhood to bear responsibility similar to how corporations are treated? So I'll put this in the chat too, just so you guys have it. But basically, should we be giving AI systems kind of a personhood to make them liable? We've seen this done with corporations. I can't remember exactly the legal case, but went all the way to the Supreme Court that said that corporations are people too. So that's led us down some very funky legal dilemmas. Thinking about PG&E as a good example, they were a company that was found criminally liable for the deaths of 8 people in their early 20 knots gas explosion. So what do you guys think? What do you think of
I
this?
don't think we can even explore that question until we have that basic framework of ground rules. So that is a great question to explore. I don't really have the answer to that, but I know that we cannot explore that question until we have some framework of rules.
Right. To dovetail off of that, that may be one way of doing it. I don't think our team is married to a way of holding things legal liable. We just want things to stop until there are the appropriate legal regulations and liability laws put in place.
Love it. And how about the eternal optimist? You guys have it's okay if you don't have an answer. That's all right. You don't have an answer.
Yeah, I personally don't have a point of view on this, with the exception to say I agree with my honorable colleague, Lina Trivedi, on the fact that we can't really look at that until we have the basic framework in place. I'm kind of supportive of that point of view.
Fantastic. Okay. This next one is from a really lovely lady named Shirley. Is it ethical to use AI as a scapegoat for human errors made in its development or deployment? Oh, okay. Shirley's got a point of view in her question here. So she's saying, is it ethical to use AI as a scapegoat for human errors made in its development or deployment? It's kind of a pointed question.
This is
I think
exactly
that's-
why we need rules to keep companies liable, right? You can't just say, oh, it's the AI's fault.
Any other? Okay. All right. We actually have a couple of questions coming through from our audience, which is fantastic. Michaela says, I hope I'm saying your name right. She says, my question is companies are not putting rules and regulations on the sites that are needed, so we cannot rely on them. Money is what these big corporations thrive on, and this is a big problem putting youth at risk. I have a 16-year-old who constantly goes on 18+ sites, needing no legal ID verification, and unfortunately, this is happening all over. Mental hospitals are overpopulated with youth, and we already have a roadmap by looking at how the internet has affected our teen. I really appreciate that comment. Debaters, do you have anything you want to share? And you guys can see this too. It's under the Q&A. If you look. Yeah.
I would say I completely agree with you. And just in the name of innovation, right? For all for the one bad use case, we find 10 good ones, right? So I would encourage everyone to do a Google search on the companies, specifically generative AI companies, that are making it their mission to protect kids from anything online. Gab is a great company. It actually puts a filter on all the devices so that the parents install it once, and it immediately sends them an alert if there's any XYZ of whatever those parents put in as the rules. There are many companies that are trying to combat this. And like you said, the corporations tend to care about the finances. So as users, I think that puts us in a position where we get to choose what we allow and what we use. And if we can support the companies that are doing good and protecting our kids, then we should. It's our choice ultimately to use those tools, though.
I think that I'd like to add a comment to that. I think that age verification tools are out there, but there isn't any sort of regulation that's requiring any type of company to necessarily use it or not use it. And that's part of the issue that we're experiencing here with a lot of companies that's affecting our youth. I still cannot put money in my Binance account because I'm not able to, my ID is not being accepted. So the technology is there, but the pendulum swings one way or the other depending on where the tech company wants to take their technology. If we were to be able to apply these rules to companies that we already know are causing harm, we can do a Google search and look at what tools are out there. We can also talk to a local police officer to see what the state of affairs is in our local communities. And I think that police officers that serve some of the crimes that are being committed toward our youth will all agree that some of these social media sites that are operating without any rules are to blame. And there's nothing that could be done because there are no rules in place that are holding them accountable. So that's my response to that.
Right.
Yeah, I think from my standpoint, just, the educational system is failing us. We need to do more in education to keep, our youngsters aware of the consequences. I'm not saying parents are the only ones responsible, but I would argue that, maybe parents should start to educate their kids about consequences of doing certain things and, help from that standpoint. But the educational system is weak. I would argue mental health professionals need to step up and step in and lean into this. They've been quiet, they've been on the sidelines, and it's time to basically come to the table and, work with educational organizations and institutions and the government to basically drive awareness. We need more of that.
Definitely.
Yeah,
And I
one
think
more
you find
comment.
everyone to agree with that. Go ahead, Ashley. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Yeah, one more comment. The devil's advocates keep talking about how they want laws and regulations, and let's just peel that back for a second, right? Whenever there is a court proceeding and we have a jury, who are the jury? It's us, it's users, it's people, it's creators, it's users of tools, it's all of us, and it's random, right?
I have one more comment.
I'm not done yet, though.
Sorry.
So it's just, it's people who have to help create those rules, and we are along the process for the whole entire length of it. So this goes to say it's already been a multifaceted approach. It's already the users and the creators and the legal system that all need to come together cumulatively. That is what our legal framework process is. So why wouldn't we expect this as a mainstream way to safeguard and safeguard these tools?
Great comment. Go ahead, Lina.
You know, everybody, we're saying everybody needs to come up to bat. The eternal optimists are saying, let's bring parents up to the table. Let's bring the mental health professionals. Let's bring the schools. But what about the most powerful force of all, Snapchat itself, these billion-dollar companies? At what point do they come to the table and say, okay, you know what, we're going to apply this rule to all of our users? That power that they have, we're not even applying any rules to them. And that's what's disheartening with this whole conversation.
I think, Lina, there are definitely there's some headway. I wouldn't say it's fantastic, but you know, Biden came up with the EO, the executive orders, as you well know, to start to address some of this. But we're way behind. There's so much more that needs to be done. I mean, there are hundreds of jobs. If anybody's looking for a job and you want to work in AI, you go and you know, sign up on the White House website where they're talking about people who need to come in and help shape AI. You have an opportunity to put your voice in there and put your thoughts in there. There's a ton of opportunity and there's a ton of work to be done. But Lina, I completely am with you on this. I just think that we need to step up. I mean, society needs to step up. The federal government needs to step up. Companies need to step up. And I think what you and I are doing is so responsible because we're saying, hey, look, we recognize it's a fragmented situation. We recognize that we need to put some best practices in place and give some guidance and try to some form of alignment. And I think that's the best that we can do at the moment. But no disrespect to any federal employee, but you know, it's time that the federal government steps up.
That's exactly what I love about working with Niten and what we're doing with Joy. I think that, did you guys hear me? Did I cut out?
Yeah, no,
okay,
yeah.
So that's what I love about working with Niten and working with what we're doing with Joy. We, even though there are no regulations, we are kind of making our own rules of what responsible applications of AI look like, and we're producing our technology in that way. And I hope more companies follow suit. We're just one small tiny pea in one pod of all the pea pods in the tech world. And maybe, you know, those practices will ripple out and have an effect. And that's what I'm hoping, you know, the future will look like.
We did have additional questions, and I see Patty answered them, but I'm gonna tease them out just so that the wider group has a chance to see it. So from Stephen, and thank you, Stephen, for letting me know about the chat. I have opened it. So there's been much debate about accountability with regard to companies. How do the devil's advocates view accountability with regard to open source projects where there is no single clear legal entity to be held accountable? Let's first answer that, and then we'll go to the eternal optimist question that he has for you. So Lina and Patty, what do you think about open source projects? And then Patty, I know you already responded, but just so we have it on video here too.
Sure. I think there does need to be regulation and legal liability there. I've worked in several environments. For some reason, developers have had a mindset, not all, that their developments don't need to be secure. And so it used to be DevOps, which was just developer operations. And then someone's like, oh yeah, we need to put security in it. And I'm kind of like, yeah, you do. and this is where legal laws and regulations would help. Open source needs that accountability. And there needs to be, you know, the way Niten had kind of touched on this earlier is data and how the data is being used. You can have open source that still has data protection, but people's mindset, again, this kind of touches on Ashley's idea and your team's idea of education. And maybe we're not as far apart as we think we are, but there needs to be security. I personally find it ridiculous that we had DevOps and then we had DevSecOps, because it just seems like a no-brainer that you would want security in whatever's being developed for online usage.
There's so much beauty in open source coding, and open source means that it's a set of code that anybody could take and apply into all kinds of unique ideas. If I were to take open source code and create an application that is producing harm, then the legal framework should hold me responsible for producing that particular piece of that particular application. Would the open source code have responsibility in that? I would say no, in my opinion, because it's my application of that open source that's causing the harm. However, if the framework is built the way that I would like to see it, then I would be held responsible and there would be consequences to what I'm putting out there.
Interesting. Awesome. Thank you so much, Lina. Eternal Optimists, how do you guys defend open source projects, given that they are difficult at best to be held accountable? So this is the other side of that question. So over to the optimists and what you guys think about the open source projects in regard of what they just said.
I mean, I think I'm not the technical person. Lina's much more qualified than me. But what I would say is that from my standpoint, we're in the nascency of this technology and the evolution of it, and you know, things are going to play out with a bit more time. I don't really have much more I can say on this, actually. I don't know, Ashley, if you have a point of view, but
Hailey, can I just give like an example to kind of, because maybe some people in the audience also don't understand the, you know, what open source is. I think that it's very similar to, you know, when we look at old technology and we look at phones, we have phone numbers, we have a system of having a phone, calling people, being able to receive phone calls. That's a technology that a lot of business and enterprise is based on today. So now if I were to build a phone system where people can call a 900 number and I'm offering certain information and that information is causing harm to people, the phone company is not responsible for that. And I think that's kind of a parallel with open source. We're not holding the phone company or open source coders responsible for the actions that are being taken from the application of what we're producing.
Got it. I appreciate that clarification. That makes a lot more sense. Okay, last question from the audience. I just have to ask it. Noah, he put it in here. For the devil's advocates, you say you care about data privacy, but can you list all the apps on your phones whose terms and conditions you have read in their entirety?
And my answer is Starbucks and LinkedIn for sure, definitely. Apple, I am a naughty Nelly.
Okay. Well, Lina, did you want to reply to it? It's okay. It's more of a joke than anything.
Like, do I read every word of it? Is that what the question was?
Do you even go to the step of copying them now that we can, copying them and putting them into ChatGPT to say what it summary is?
A lot of times I do go back and look at it when there's an issue. So I do look at it in the aftermath. I do trust that our the entities that be, I know, like with our technology, there are certain rules that we need to make sure that we're addressing in our user agreements with our technology. So there's a certain level of trust that I have that the powers that be are looking out for my basic best interests, because I know that there are rules in place, like, for example, with mental health and with different healthcare systems. So from that standpoint, I don't read it all on the spot, but when there is an issue, then I do go back and be like, what did I agree to? Let me look at what I agreed to so that I can figure out how to take a course of action to remedy a wrong that I feel may have been done to me.
I'm not saying it's right, but I am going to point out that 52% of people who file taxes commit tax fraud annually, and that tax fraud is a spouse prepares the taxes and the other spouse just signs it. And this is a proven fact, and it is tax fraud, but nobody really thinks of it that way. Not that it makes it right, Noah and team. I'm just pointing out there are a number of instances where we all could be a lot more diligent than we currently are.
And I'm gonna dovetail all of this with a wonderful comment from Michaela here saying, but the youth do not care about the rules they have or the maturity to read it and follow it, which is why we need regulations. And Noah says, devil's advocates, you sound like eternal optimists now. So, so great.
We can all get along.
I mean, ultimately, I think a lot of people want a lot of the same things. It's just a disagreement about how to get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a good opportunity for us to go ahead and head into our closing statements in our final 20 minutes of our event.
Like
what was that? What was that, sister?
Round robin order that we established.
Do you want to continue? Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Go
I would say we do need to stop, and we do need legislation and regulations. I have a personal example. I tried to get ChatGPT to write a joke using sexual innuendo. It would not do sexual innuendo. It will, however, tell you how to make a bomb. It will, however, generate malicious code. So given my personal example, I think that is clear evidence that priorities maybe are not in the safest place, and that we do need to stop and put some regulation and limits on this.
Okay. Thank you, Patty. Perfect. Right within the 2.5-minute time frame. So I appreciate that. All right. Next is Ashley. Closing statement. Did I get that wrong?
Nope, you got it right. I'm just contemplating addressing something I heard, but I will move on.
No, you should. Is it about the making the bomb?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
ChatGPT doesn't teach you how to make a bomb. I see Noah in the chats, and he has a fantastic video. It's very punchy and concise, where he actually tries to do this to debunk that myth. And he actually takes a screenshot of how you can change the code to make the answer from ChatGPT appear that it did give you that answer. And that's what people are taking screenshots of and putting in Reddit. So I think that this is a great time to remind everyone to do your own research. I encourage you to go try this. Okay. There's resources out there. Noah's video is very great. I think it's under 3 minutes too. Thank you, Noah. Where you can debunk this. I don't think you should take anybody's words of advice. I think you should do your own research at the end of the day, because that's what we're really trying to get you to do with these debates, is open your mind to two different perspectives and hear what a lot of people have to say, and then use that feedback to go make your own decisions. So that was my call out. I think that makes a really great closing statement though. So I'm kind of just going to leave it at that. Thanks, Hailey.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, over to Lina.
Yes, thank you. I am just going to echo that we need to have some ground rules. I think all of us that are sitting here at the table, I think all of the audience members here, these aren't the people that we're necessarily needing the ground rules for. There's so many vulnerable people in our communities, from children as well as the impressionable elderly that have no idea what any of this even is. We have people with mental health challenges. These are the people that we need to make sure that the rules that are being followed are at least have some minimal layer of protection to hold companies accountable for just blatant issues that are occurring. A big one is the age verification systems that occur on sites. Like, for example, there are children out there that can buy THC vapes on the internet and just get it delivered to their home. Just because they click a button that says, yeah, I'm 18, I can't go into a bar. I can't even step into a bar if I don't have an ID. Well, maybe I can now, but when I was younger, I had to have an ID that said, yes, I am 21, and somebody looked at it, somebody made sure that it's correct. That's just common sense. Nobody is going to open up a bar and just trust somebody that walks in it and says, yeah, I'm 21, let me get a rum and Coke. It's just not going to happen in our real world, so why should it happen in our technology world? In the words of Judge Judy, she said, how do you know when a teenager is lying? When they're moving their mouth. And that's exactly what we're dealing with here. So let's just be adults and get some rules together, some simple rules, and move forward. I'm excited. I'm in development as well. We're developing Joy.ai, and I am so excited about it. And I'm not scared of rules. I think the rules are necessary. I want to protect our vulnerable communities with what we produce. So let's do it and let's make it happen.
Well, anytime you quote Judge Judy is a winner chicken dinner for me. So. All right, Niten, certainly last but not least, certainly not least. So over to you, my friend.
First of all, Hailey, thank you as always for organizing this. I think the four of us would agree that this is an opportunity to educate people. There's far too many people who are just unaware of the issues, and what we are trying to bring today is, insight into what the issues are. I don't believe that we should be stopping but I think we should actually continue to build momentum by keeping us all engaged. And, from my standpoint, as developers will get smarter and more creative, they obviously need to make sure that they're receiving the necessary level of training to make sure that the products and solutions that they release are going to be less harmful or not even harmful to society. I think we can use soft laws to drive convergence. So soft laws like industry guidelines, codes of conduct, standards that can help regulators drive convergence and enable interoperability. I think that, let's be clear, our country was founded on the principle of freedom and choice. And to me, we're the greatest country in the world. And if we want to retain and be the AI leader, we have to be thoughtful. We have to take a holistic approach to AI regulation and accountability. And that's my stance. Thank you, Hailey. Thank you, team. It was awesome debating with you guys today.
Yes. Always thoughtful,
Yeah.
always good information, always well researched. Thank you very much.
I want to thank each of you for being here, because this requires a lot of time, a lot of concern and worry and research. And you guys, you're not getting paid for this. I wish I could pay you, but you're not getting paid for it. And so to do this because you care, and to put yourself out there because you care, that is everything. So thank you for being here, putting yourselves out there. It's easy for me to be a moderator. All I do is just, this. I don't actually have to argue with anyone, so it's great. So this recording will be made available on YouTube. We'll put it on LinkedIn. We'll make it available. I do want to go ahead and take this time, since we had 10 people who really spent and hung in there with us. I'm going to go ahead and allow them to talk. You guys do not have to talk, but I want you to feel like you have a seat at our table, because that's a big thing about impact. So I'm going to you are talking is permitted. You do have to unmute yourselves. No pressure to talk,
Nice.
to join the conversation, but I wanted you to feel part of our impact community here.
Yeah.
So as we do that, I did have one last little activity I didn't tell you guys about. We're going to try it. I have a poll on who won.
Wow.
So everyone should be able to see that poll and vote on who they think won. Now,
How do we vote?
We can't.
I don't think sorry. But there's 4 of you. I mean, I would imagine it'd be pretty obvious. It's like 2 for this and 2 for that.
Or
So
an even split.
cancel each other out.
I was
That's
going to give my vote to the eternal optimists, give them a little pity vote.
Oh, burn. You see how it is.
No, I'm just joking, I love all you guys.
No.
All right, Hannah,
yeah. Okay, just so you guys know, we've got 55% of the people have participated. The votes are still coming in, so I will wait. While we're getting our votes, does anyone from the audience have any feedback for us, or anything that they would have liked to see us dive deeper into, or feel like we didn't, anything like that? Yeah, lay it on me.
Hi, my name's Michaela.
Michaela.
Hi. I have a 16-year-old son, so I definitely know all about the online world. And my question is, because I know they say, the parents being more responsible, making sure they're not doing these things. When you have these youth are so highly intelligent when it comes to technical things, more so than most adults. And my son, he does not have a phone, but he will find another phone anywhere, anyhow. He has hacked his school laptop computer so many times that their tech team doesn't even know how to keep the firewalls up. And this is happening with so many youth across. And these youth are outstanding in numbers. The mental health facilities are overtaken. He's been in treatment 7 months now. And all of them are the same story. I've seen girls as young as 10 with eating disorders, and it's due to Instagram, or the way that you're supposed to look. And when I think about AI, I think about, you know, they do look perfect or a certain way, and how that's even going to hurt the youth even more with the eating disorder community when they're already, I cannot believe these little girls that are in, I mean, it's just so sad. And then we have so many teens. You keep in mind that suicide is the #1 killer in teens today. It's not cancer, it's not car accidents, it is suicide. And let's look at that. Well, a lot of it has to do with our internet. So you say we need to have it grow and see to place regulations, but while it's growing, if we lose one more youth, I don't think it's worth watching it grow to set a regulation, because we can set a regulation now before it grows to save a life. And for me, that's way more important. And the thing is, there are no regulations. My son can go on, get a THC vape and have it shipped. My son can go on Grindr and say he's 18, and which unfortunately has happened, and he has been raped. So that also created more mental health. So for me, and I know how many kids this is happening to, now we have AI coming, we already have such a roadmap of what these things are doing and what's happening, that we have a chance to stop and prevent it, because it's only going to make matters worse.
Absolutely. Michaela, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I'm really, really sorry to hear about the journey your son is going through, and that is, like you saying, it's echoed all throughout. I'm just started as the youth pastor, youth director at my local church. And so we're a small country church. We're not seeing that too much, but you know, finding out that suicide is the #1 killer of our youth is absolutely bonkers if you think about it. My goodness.
Yeah.
This is the best we can do for our young people. Come on.
It's our
so
next generation. Yeah. So
they're the future.
they're the
right?
future. Exactly. And it's just, I think for sure that, you know, I just think I already see, without even it growing, how this is going to affect young girls, and especially the vulnerable youth that already have mental health and impulsivity that they can't control, and they make impulsive decisions, and then they're like, oh my God, what did I just do? And it's too late.
Yeah. Yep. It's and this is why we're here, right? This is why we choose to take really, these are all busy people, all,
Right.
various forms of employed. Everyone's busy. They've got families. Ashley's got a kid. Lena's got a kid. So Patty's got 2 kids. Nithen and I are the only one out here just childless. It's okay. We're gonna let the other kids take care of us when we're old. But it's a thing, and it's we can't wait for the Sam Altmans and the Elon Musks to decide to figure out. No one's gonna come save us. I'm sorry. We're gonna have to save us. So this is why we do
Yes.
this.
100%.
Yeah. And I appreciate the perspective you sharing of it can't be all on the parent. This came up in our last debate that we did in February, which again is on YouTube. We looked at AI's impact on the loneliness epidemic, and Lina shared about her daughter being 14 years old and having an AI boyfriend, several AI boyfriends, and how challenging, you can't just take the phone away, right? So
I did. I
and
actually
how
did.
successful was that? How successful was that?
Exactly. I did. And my son is very intelligent, and he will find other ways. They will get another phone. I mean, through school, through friends, through wherever they go, unless you literally keep a leash on them, which I try to do at this point, but still, they're smart. And if you just pull an AI boyfriend, you think about adults committing suicide over that, and vulnerable youth who falls for that AI boyfriend, and you pull it, then they're going to turn suicidal easily.
Yeah. Noah, Riley, I know you're on. I see you say I'd love to address this question. Did you have something you wanted to add to that, the discussion?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sound great.
Okay. Michaela, thank you again. That was it was a very vulnerable thing to share all that. So I just wanted to, before I address it, just to say thank you, and acknowledging that's difficult to say. And so I'm not gonna get too much into my life story here. I've been through some things. I'm well acquainted with the mental health struggles and struggles of suicide and growing up in abusive households and things like that. Like those are all pretty commonplace to me. The idea, and also being one of those people who it's like people are trying to constantly restrict, like, oh, he's too smart, take this thing from him. He shouldn't have this. And like you were saying, it doesn't work. It breeds resentment. It makes people upset. It makes people reject the rules. And also, I just want to also kind of just shine a light on the fact that this is a very, we're using a very, kind of the most sensitive, difficult topics that are kind of outside of the realm of generative AI at the moment. I understand that they are being, the whole thing about the guy killing himself. I mean, we're taking literally like 0.0001% of what this thing is doing, then trying to shut the whole thing down. But I have yet to hear someone say that they want to stop making hammers because someone was killed with a hammer at some point somewhere. The vast majority of AI usage is to the benefit. And when it's like rubber meets road time, is that AI is not going to stop no matter how you regulate it. And also regulations just by their nature are going to only be followed by people who are ethical and moral, which means that the only people who will continue to use it are not ethical and moral. So you're removing yourself effectively from the situation and leaving it only to the bad players and no one else. So if you put those regulations in place, it'll only be adhered to by people who care about rules, and everyone else won't care, and they'll continue on, which means you'll continue to be hopelessly behind. You won't stop anything at all because anyone can go and download an LLM anywhere and design their own stuff. It literally will do absolutely nothing to stop the bad players, nothing at all, like zero effectiveness at all. The companies themselves, yeah, we have yet to see, I think Ashley kind of pointed this out, where we actually did this thing where it was like, oh yeah, technology came out of the bag, let's put it back in the bag and then stop it until regulation comes into place. Lina, the example about the medical thing, that's not a global emerging technology. Those are hyper experimental, non-approved procedures. They're not quite the same. But even in the case where we're talking about these most extreme circumstances where people are like committing suicide or having these boyfriends or hacking things, when we were like, yeah, like we have this responsibility, like we're the adults in the room. We can't trust these teenagers. Well, the adults in the room built this world that we're living in right now. So the idea that we can trust ourselves is also a little bit foolhardy and a little bit arrogant, if I would say so myself. I think we need to take some responsibility that we are the people who got us here. So we're not so much like, we're not the people who are just going to automatically just get us out because we think we're so smart. Us thinking that way is what got us exactly into the situation. So we take responsibility for that. If we want to keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, that's literally the definition of insanity. So let's not do that either. The cat's out of the bag. We can move forward. Like we can continue to look at progress. We can continue to seek regulation, but we cannot move backwards. It doesn't, has not, will never happen. It just won't. So while we can address these sensitive issues, and I really encourage people who have those concerns about ethics to remain in the conversation, use AI, collaborate with people who want to accelerate. But the idea that you're going to put up a wall and no one's going to go over it is just ridiculous. It's just not a thing. So let's all, I think instead of thinking about it in terms of like we have people who are accelerating, people who are decelerating, let's look at the things that are in the middle and find a way to collaborate. But holding the companies responsible and trying to stop progress is never going to happen. It hasn't happened. It won't happen. I just wanted to throw that out there. And also, thank you, Michaela.
That's it. That's the whole
So,
debate. Just
you're gonna-
Noah's part.
And scene. No, that was so good, Noah. Did you take notes? Were you taking notes during the debate thing?
No, I was enthralled. I mean, you guys did a great job, and Patty, I know you, Patty. Lina, I haven't met you. I'm very much like I'm not trying to make myself seem like I'm aggressive or like hating you. I know you guys are playing roles and everything. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm not mean.
Oh, you're not.
He's lovely.
Well, I
We love
think
our Noah.
you should be a debater next time. I think you would be an awesome person.
I do too. We're gonna get you, Noah. You're gonna get you as a debater.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Sign me
we're
up.
at time. It's 1:32, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Noah, thank you so much. Michaela, thank
Thank
you
you,
so
guys.
much.
Yeah, you're
We'll have
welcome.
this. We'll be doing this again. We're going to try to do one every 6 weeks. We're still working on the timing with this crew. But do come back for other debates. If you guys have other debate ideas and topics, please LinkedIn me, message me. I can't come up with it all on my own, though I do try. I think you guys are phenomenal. Thank you all I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Go home, go feel energized. My debaters, go get a drink. Y'all deserve it. Take a nap. I need to go shower. I've got a pool of sweat now. I'm all stressed, but this has been great. And I appreciate y'all so much. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you at the next break.
Wait, the poll. What happened to the poll?
Oh, you want to know who won? I'll tell you who won. I'll go look it up again. Only everyone participated except for one person. Eternal Optimist won at 75%. It was a trouncer. You guys got trounced.
We don't need your pity vote, Lina. Thanks though for offering it.
You got trounced. But you know what? I think I'd be curious to know if that isn't more just that's how people feel. Right? Like how much of that is based off of
Hailey, come on,
they're-
don't rain on our parade, right? The audience has spoken.
Right.
Give it to the
Audience
audience.
has spoken.
That's a problem.
That's right. And the golden boot for top AI talent goes to Eternal Optimist.
No,
You guys get it this time.
Awesome debate. Thank you
Awesome.
everybody so much. And thanks for the audience for joining.
Yes. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. You guys are the best. We love you to pieces. All right.
Bye.
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 Bye.